Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to episode 175 of the Nora Speaks podcast. And I am your host, Nora Muhammad, and I'm happy to be back with you. I'm happy to still be present and breathing and alive and enjoying life, as there are so many people who are not. And so we can never, ever take any day or any moment for granted. We have to appreciate each and every opportunity that we have, and I certainly do appreciate this opportunity to come before you and share some information, insights through the Nora Speaks podcast that I believe are relevant and important for our people, for our families, and for our community. I'm grateful to have this podcast. I'm grateful to have you as an audience member of the Nora Speaks podcast, whether this is your first time listening, your fifth time listening, and even if you are a subscriber, I'm grateful to you all and for you all. And it's so important, I think, that we have sobering conversation about issues that impact our future, that impact our present, that shape the minds and confidence and esteem of our young people, that impact the relationships that we have with each other, whether it's spousal relationships, familial relationships, and relationships that we have with those outside of our homes and our communities and abroad. And I'm very grateful to have this platform and to have the intention to be someone who can make an impact and to impact others beyond just my own family, besides my own community. And to have the intention to share a broader message abroad. And so I'm thankful. And as I said, this is episode 175, and this is a subject that I'm going to take on today that I do with, in all seriousness and with great sensitivity. I've been giving this conversation quite a bit of thought for many months now. And the conversation that I'm going to begin can be difficult to hear for some. And I would say it's probably very unpopular, an unpopular message. But there are three women that are on my mind right now, and that's Lizzo, Chloe, and Cardi B. And I'm talking about, of course, the artist Lizzo, the artist Chloe, and our sister Cardi B. And it's not specifically them personally, but it's also those who are following them, feeding off of them, learning from them, being inspired and impacted by them, and it in general, our Black women, and why it appears that we are finding empowerment through sexuality. So the title of this episode is "Where There Are No Decent Women, There Are No Decent Men." And so I can imagine right from that title, there are no decent women, there are no decent men. You can say, well, Nora, why are you using women? Why are you making women responsible for men? Why is the absence of decent women? How does that impact the presence or absence of decent men? Well, it's simply because a nation, a community, we can rise no higher than the women. And so that is because when women are elevated, are intelligent, are civilized, are loving, are generous, are decent, then we are going to produce boys and daughters who we will give all of these important and essential qualities to. And if the woman does not have decency, if the woman does not have confidence, if the woman does not have love, then she is not going to be able to inspire that or give that to those children that she's bearing, that she's carrying in the womb, that she's born and have given life to, that she's nursing and suckling, that she's raising and teaching. If I don't have it to give, I cannot instill these essential components in a child. And so that is why I say, where there are no decent women, there are no decent men. And so you may say, well, how does that relate to Lizzo, Chloe, and Cardi? I'm thinking about these sisters, these entertainers, and the mindset that has been cultivated in our culture, wherein we have become numb and desensitized to the degradation of the Black woman. And these women are not so much responsible or the author of the degradation of Black women. Absolutely not. But what we see in their performance, in their display, we see the degradation. We see the shame. We see the degeneration of the Black woman. And their just examples, or their music, or their what they produce, is just an example of that. And there are so many other examples. But I'm speaking about them because they are three very prominent women. And as you know, if you listen to this podcast before, I do not do hit pieces. I do not strive to be someone that is openly condemning of our people. What I do condemn is wrongdoing, negligence. I condemn deception and deceit and lies. However, I do not condemn my people. I do not have that role. That is not what Nora Speaks is all about. That is not what I am about, condemning my people. However, I will condemn the falsehood. I will condemn the degradation. I will condemn the disrespect of our women. And these sisters, as I said, are not the authors of it. However, they do portray it in their content. So again, why is it that the music, the media, the videos, the lyrical content of what our artists are producing, why is it pornographic? Why is the young Black woman's self-expression saturated with sexuality? I know that there's talk about body image and body positivity and empowerment. Well, who equated for us sexuality with empowerment? Who put these two things together? Now, everyone who is a human being has sexuality. That's just part of the human nature. However, sexuality is generally something that is private. That is not something that is or should be ever public, right? We call that pornography, don't we? Well, why is it that in the quote urban culture, urban media, hip hop, rap, black culture, why is it so demoralized? Why is it so laced with sex and sexuality? Unfortunately for us, in our community, we see evidence that we still have a plantation mentality. We're still in some way on display, right? And I think maybe talking about it in a sports context may be easier. And I believe Colin Kaepernick talked about this in his book, in his own writing, about what it's like for student athletes or wannabe professional athletes to be picked over, to be looked over, to be inspected, much like the slaves on the plantation were inspected, where they would line the slaves up and they would look in the slave's mouth. They would measure the slave. They would weigh the slave. They would inspect the slave to determine if this buck could get the work done for master's plantation. And so he used that analogy and that comparison. And as we know, the black woman on the plantation, not only was she a worker, but she was also a producer. She was a factory for more slaves. She did not produce children out of a loving relationship and family where the goal was to live happily ever after. That wasn't the sister's reality on the plantation. When she had a child, she was giving the slave master a product that he could use to strengthen his own wealth, that he could sell, that would work on his plantation like his cattle. And so the sexuality of the black woman was for the enriching of the slave master. And so now that I'm watching these young women, these young artists, and it's not just Chloe and Lizzo and Cardi B. It is not just them. And this is not about demonizing them, but it is about demonizing the mindset that as black women, especially these young sisters, that they and their value is in their sexuality. When the value of the black woman is what is in her mind and is what is in her heart. And it is such a unfortunate reality that what our girls are watching in the videos, they begin emulating it. So it comes off the stage and it comes into our homes and it goes into our communities. The behavior that some of these artists portray, and it was somewhat amusing if you saw the video of Cardi B, and she was creating a video and she had her own music playing. And then when she realized her daughter had came into the room, she quickly turned it off, as if it reminded me as if a child was getting caught doing something wrong by their parent. And so people criticized Cardi B and said, wait, you don't want your own daughter to listen to that? And Cardi B doesn't want her own daughter to listen to that because she values her daughter and she doesn't want her to receive that kind of messaging at that age. And she says to people, well, look, you have to raise your children. I'm raising mine. And so I share that to say that she inherently knows that that is not good for her own child, but it's a product that she produces that other children are consuming. And although she says that her music is for adults, we know that radio stations, they in media, they target young people. They target young people because they want to have a lifelong customer. And so that's one of the that is one of the tools that even the tobacco industry employed, and how they got in so much trouble is because they know that if they target a young person, they can have a customer for life. And so media targets young people to train their ear, to train their appetite for what it is that they're selling. And so more young people are consuming media and entertainment than older people. I mean, these are just numbers that many of you may know and some of you don't know. So although she says her product, her music, or videos, that's for adults, we know that there are young people who are consuming it. So again, where there are no decent women, there are no decent men. As women, we are giving birth, we're teaching, we're nurturing, we're training the next generation. And so if we have accepted ourselves and our value as something that can be relegated to a sex act, well, that is a very, very limited value. And if we are accepting that limited value, then that's all that we can share with our little girls. And that's what we're sharing with our little boys. So our little girls see themselves as an object of sex. Their value is sex. And we're teaching our boys that the value of a female is sex. And the value is so much greater than that. Their value is so much greater than that. Our value is so much greater than that. However, we have a more targeted training, teaching, messaging that is sexualized than we do that one is academic or intellectual, especially when it pertains to our young black minds, whether they be male or female. But if we want a better future, then we have to create a better reality for ourselves. And the notion that taking my clothes off, I'm showing my empowerment. How is exactly is displaying our sexuality before the world empowering? What is that gaining for us? And I think about some of these women who in the studio and on the stage, they are using lyrics that say things or talk about things like prostitution, selling their sex, and giving oral sex to strangers and how they like it. And I think, okay, now when you get into the boardroom, do you really think that these attorneys and agents are there taking you seriously? You're a clown to them. You're fodder to them. In fact, you're a cash cow to them. But they're showing that they don't have value of you because you're showing that you don't have value of yourself. And the reason why I say that, this is a very sensitive conversation, because we are in an age now where it is unpopular to call out women for our behavior. It's unpopular to call out women for how we dress. But I'm a woman, and I'm a black woman, and I love my sisters. So if I see it, I have to say it. And I want the coming generation of young women to know that your power is not in your sexuality, although you are a sexual creature. Your power is in what is in your heart and what is in your mind and what you can produce with your heart and what you're in and with your mind. And it's a message that we have to resonate. It's a conversation that we have to have. I mean, this shock value and doing it for clicks and for likes, that this is just not sustainable. And, I think about some of these poor sisters that are out here with these sharks, these entertainment sharks. And it concerns me about, what's going on with their mental health. For them to continually be on stage in lingerie and go-go boots and acting and pretending to be this a sexual creature. I mean, what does playing this role do to your mind? And it does do something to one's mind. I mean, I think about the actor Heath Ledger, who played the Joker in a Batman movie. And I recall reading an article where I believe it was Jack Nicholson, who had played the Joker before, had talked about how difficult that role is. And I believe even discouraged Heath Ledger in doing the role. And when our people play roles that are so depraved, and you have to get into the character and pretend to be something, that impacts you mentally. And so, unfortunately, Heath Ledger committed suicide. He took his own life. And I'm not saying it's from playing the Joker, but others who have played the Joker gave warnings and said, look, this one's a tough one. So what is it when our sisters play the role that they're playing? When they're playing the vixen constantly, they're the sex vixen, they're the sex kitten. What is that doing to them? And what is that doing to the minds of our young women and our young men who are watching it? I mean, this shock value, everybody wants to shock, I think about our poor brother, Lil Nas X. Everybody wants to be as shocking as they can. And now it's to the point where we're barely raising our eyebrows because everyone's simulating sex. Everybody's dry humping. And in a way, we've just become quite numb to this. We are still on the plantation. And we have to teach our young women, we have to teach our girls about what real empowerment is and teach them about what their power is and remind them that if something is easily accessible, it's not described as having great value, but those things that are difficult to access, where there are gatekeepers, either in nature or otherwise, then those are the objects that have the most value. We can take something as inconsequential as a rock. They call it a diamond. And because the diamond is so difficult to access, then it has value. Gold, something that you're just not going to find outside in your garden, right? These rocks, these metals, they have value because they are not easily accessible. And as Black women, when we are making ourselves easily accessible, what are we communicating that we think about ourselves? And it's us now mocking ourselves. It's us now trading our dignity for followers and for fans. It's us being demoralized and kind of normalizing, these sensational practices. And I remember women of great talent that were not pornographic. I talked about Lizzo and they've made her the body positive queen. Is it because she's an obese woman that's taking off her clothes? What's so positive about that? Now, this is the time when everybody should love themselves. And when we love ourselves, we're taking care of ourselves. But loving myself and being positive doesn't mean that I should take off my clothes. And this isn't because Lizzo is an obese woman. I don't think any woman should be out there taking off her clothes, because I value our sisters and they should value themselves. And then poor young Chloe, who's now, producing without her sister, and now she's trying to find her way, and she's taking off her clothes and becoming more risque. I remember when Janet Jackson came out with the album Control, and nobody could touch Janet Jackson. But when Janet Jackson came out with the album Control and blew our minds, she was fully dressed. So to Chloe and to others, you do not have to undignify yourselves, take off your clothes, hump the stage, hump your backup dancers. You do not have to simulate sex and pornography to be relevant. And if someone, an agent, an attorney, a manager is encouraging you to do that, well, you need to get rid of them, because you can still show the talent absent of the sex. And if people are trying to convince us that that's where it's at and that's how we can become relevant, then we should get rid of those people, because there's a different way to do it. And other artists are doing just that, and they're holding on to their dignity in the process. Look, we got to look at ourselves in the mirror. And at some point, these women, their autobiographies are going to be written, or people are going to produce biographies about them. They're going to tell their story. And when they tell their story, they're going to talk about the depression and the sadness that they've experienced when they were young and allowing themselves to be exploited. Others have told their stories before, and these young people, these young women, they're going to have their own stories to tell. And maybe no one else is in their ear encouraging them to be dignified, to put their clothes on, to let your talent shine without your sexuality interrupting or interfering me receiving your talent. Maybe they've never heard this, but they're going to come to a point where it's just going to be too heavy to bear, and we're going to hear the story at some point about the difficult time that they were having in the industry. So many others have told their stories, and we know it's coming. The entertainment industry is very difficult for our people, for our women. And, it's very hard to change. At some point they can get tired of portraying these characters, the vixen, the sex kitten. They can get tired of it. But if it's all that the people know, and if it's the only thing that the people expect, sometimes these artists hold on to this caricature that they've been because they don't think that the people will accept them. So, where there are no decent women, there are no decent men. And we have to teach our girls, our young women, love of self, what it means to respect self, what it means to be an empowered woman, what it means to have a heart and a mind that is powerful, producing what it is that we want, and keeping our dignity in the process. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts and reading your comments on this subject. Until next time, stay in peace. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, noramahammed.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@noraspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.